Hello, 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 and welcome to another live edition of Arrays of Living. If you are going to be on the chat, then by all means, please let yourself be known. Tell us where you're from. So, basically, introduce yourself, share where you're from, and any other appropriate tidbits. And as I always say, only appropriate, please. So during the show, I am going to be asking questions. So feel free to respond in the chat as well, or pose questions, or just comment. All right. But if you're in the chat, keep it going. I will be checking the chat as it unfolds. I am your host, Jen Drakes, and I am passionate about life and living it to the fullest. Today is the show I love the best, our In Conversation episode. And today I am joined by a guest, which is what our In Conversation is all about. And across 2021, we have an amazing lineup of guests for these episodes. And this one is no different. So in a moment, I will be bringing in our guest, who is Jennifer Hicks. And we will be discussing recovery through mindful NIA technique exercises. And Jennifer started attending NIA fitness classes as a way of recovering from a long struggle with adult anorexia and exercise addiction. And experiencing firsthand the positive impact NIA had and still has on her life, Jennifer knew she needed to bring NIA to her world. I love when this happens. She now teaches NIA using a HAZE, which stands for Help at Every Size, informed approach to people all over the world through Zoom. Jen enjoys sharing NIA with both neurotypical and neurodiverse groups through studios, hospitals, and community organizations. And with that introduction, let me bring in our guest and get this conversation started. Jen, you didn't hear, welcome, my dear. You didn't hear that amazing introduction I gave you, but I'm sure you get it. Let's get this conversation started. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm fabulous. And I'm so excited by this discussion. So, for our guests, and I did the introduction where I talked about how you used it to overcome anorexia and how you're using it now for neurodiverse groups, and really from the neurological aspects of things. So, why don't we start by you telling us what is the NIA technique? What is NIA?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So NIA is a 35, 36-year-old practice that originated in Northern California. It was developed in response to the fact that the people who founded it were heavy into step aerobics. And they, at the time, were finding they had injuries and a lot of pain. So they decided to step away from that and just experience different movement modalities, different movement practices. So they investigated the martial arts, dance arts, the healing arts, and eventually started to blend these movements into a practice we now know as NIA. So we've got elements of Tai Chi, Taekwondo, we've got a little bit of jazz dance, we've got a little bit of yoga, and we take those sort of energies and blend them together to create a non-impact movement practice. And it's actually done barefoot.
So, oh, wow. Is that an important aspect of it, is to do it bare feet?
It is. If what I learned is that the feet have more than 7,000 sensory nerves each in them. So when we wear a shoe, we're actually we're blurring that information that we can get from those nerve endings. Mm-hmm. And so without our shoes on, we get to feel all the information that can come up through the feet and inform us about the rest of our body.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is also a new discovery for me, very, very new, is in terms of even going outside bare feet and doing your, any kind of meditation or reflection with your feet planted in nature, to pick up so much pulse and, emissions and everything through your feet. And I find this interesting because it goes actually against everything I've been brought up with, I can tell you, because we have been taught you don't go out bare feet, right? And it's very important. But when you come in the house, you must take off your shoes, which is, so it's those two type of dynamics. And so it's a relearning, like it's a rewriting of my own narratives to go out and step on a grass or anywhere bare feet and just try to embrace that. So I find it interesting that you talked about that, because that was very recent, like maybe less than a month, that I've started to like kind of explore that piece and try to just bridge the whole thing between how I was brought up and what is I'm actually learning from this very spiritual journey that I'm on. So yeah, I'm glad you think so. Let's explore that a little bit more. So what are you doing to do those connections? Is it just the mere fact that you're bare feet, or what's happening there? What are you doing as a NIA fitness instructor to augment that whole experience?
That's a fantastic question. Oh my goodness. So in NIA, we're barefoot, but we also have a number of foot techniques that we're using to support and follow sort of the design of the foot. So we have a step called a heel lead. So if you think about, if this is my foot, and this is the heel of my foot, that's the biggest part of my foot. So we say the way the body is designed is that biggest part of the foot would take the absorption, absorb the shock of landing, and then we roll and step off the ball of the foot. So it's this beautiful sort of technique of shifting weight, right, and using the foot the way it's designed to be used. And that has benefits right up the chain, up for the legs, the hips, the thighs, the spine. It really supports the transition of weight.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have that technique. We have other foot techniques that are really designed to increase the strength of the foot, in that, if we wear shoes and we're sort of boxing our feet in, they get weak. All those muscles in the feet that are intended to be moved get really stationary and weak. And that's where, that's where foot pain can come in. That's where you can easily turn an ankle. You can cause other injuries because the foot doesn't have any breathing space, so to speak.
So what happens, and it, oh my goodness, this goes so against everything we've been, not just I talk about it from a cultural perspective, but I think in society, you're poor if you don't have shoes, right? Yeah. I also heard the lens that if you go without shoes, your feet actually spread out, like they become wide, while the shoes narrows the feet, right? Help to craft how your feet look. So there's a whole economic perspective on wearing shoes, not wearing shoes versus what we're here talking about. So I'm sure our audience will be kind of going.
Well, you're right, Jen, and also economic and also aesthetic. Because yes. You're right. Since I've been doing NIA now almost 20 years, my feet have widened, and at the same time, so one might say aesthetically that's not very beautiful, but at the same time, I no longer have foot pain. I started out with plantar fasciitis, and because of the way I've strengthened and lengthened and widened my feet, they're just so much more comfortable. I don't wake up in pain. I don't have to hobble around in discomfort. And along the way, I had to make some choices. Like I can no longer wear heels. I can no longer wear wedges. So it is That's
the sacrifice you made.
Yeah.
To get the benefit, the healing benefit.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, this is so interesting. Wow, who would have thought talking about the Nia technique we would end up talking about the feet? Never in a million years that I envisioned that, but it's an important aspect, and it definitely raised my curiosity about what other aspects. So let's talk a little bit about what other aspects of Nia is there, because I watched a video. I watched several of your videos, and by the way, Jennifer is very active on LinkedIn. So if you're LinkedIn, just go and look up Jennifer Hicks, and you'll see she has a lot of videos out there. And I was looking at one of your videos, and it had some seniors. They seemed to be in like a senior citizen setting, watching you via Zoom, and I thought it was the most adorable thing. I loved it so much. And you were in a chair just doing your thing, and they were just, with their hands doing all of these things. So why don't we talk about some of those aspects? And I'm also curious about the neurological piece, because that also seems to be a very strong piece for the NIA aspects of things. So why don't you explore that a bit with us?
Sure. So I do work with seniors, mostly with dementia. And I'm part of a fantastic new virtual program called the Beethoven Method, where we, as a number of artists in different disciplines, offer arts-based programming to people with dementia. And through that program, I offer, a seated version of NIA. So the beautiful thing about NIA is that you mentioned off the top, it is a technique. It has form. We have 52 moves. We have certain ways that we want to move the body to support healthy functioning, but we also have freedom. And the freedom is what's beautiful about that is the opportunity to express. So using some of the dance arts, we express joy, we express happiness, maybe even sadness, moodiness, a range of emotions that is expressed non-verbally, sometimes through the voice, sometimes through the body. So what I have come to really appreciate about Nia is that it's not just about the physical. We're also looking at, us as whole beings. We're looking at an opportunity to express emotions, an opportunity to engage our imaginations, and also a way that we can let our unique spirits out. Use the invitation to express freely, to just be ourselves and just accept who we are in the moment.
That is wonderful.
Yes.
So wow. I'm already kind of like, ooh, let's go into a yoga state.
Yeah. Well, so it's really beautiful in that no two people are ever going to look the same, and that is wholly encouraged. It's not like someone's going to come and correct you. It's not like you're going to be told you're wrong or shamed or anything like that. As long as you're being true to yourself, that's what we really encourage, and that's why it works so well with a variety of people.
Oh, that is fantastic. And what aspects of yoga, or I think you said that it incorporates aspects of yoga, and a lot of yoga is on the move, like on the floor. But if you're working with seniors or people that have certain conditions, which aspect of yoga are you taking? The breathing, the floor work, the standing, which aspects of yoga?
Yeah, so the sort of bottom line, the overarching principle is awareness. So staying with sensation, staying in our body. And that's one element that is practiced in yoga, but also just thinking about the alignment, how our bones are meant to be sort of stacked on top of each other for healthy functioning. So sometimes it's just a mindfulness around head up, or a mindfulness around shoulders back and down, or that kind of thing. Sometimes, depending on which group it is I'm working with, it's mindfulness around stacking the pelvis and then the chest and then the head, and sort of awareness. There's a lot of education around body literacy that's going on as well. But yeah, we do in sort of a classic Nia class, let's say at a dance studio where I might be teaching, we do get down on the ground, most definitely.
Okay.
And we do some yoga type stretches. Sometimes we do what is called floor play, which is just getting down and rolling around and just going with what feels good.
Right.
Be very nourishing and soothing to the nervous system. Yeah.
And I have to correct, she said floor, not foreplay.
Yes.
I thought somebody's gonna get something
that has happened.
Did she say foreplay? No, she said floor. F-L-O-O-R. Floor play. Okay, so now tell us. Okay, so how long have you been doing this now, Jennifer? Has it been?
I've been teaching for 15 years. Coming up.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and it's been quite a journey. Do you know that expression? The teacher teaches what they need to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I came to Nia, I was very, let's just say, broken. I was dealing with adult anorexia, and I also had an exercise addiction. So I did not eat, and I spent most of my waking hours moving.
Wow.
So I was a pretty dire set of circumstances when I came to Nia, and really I've just learned so much about compassion to myself,
yes,
to others, and also just finding like a sense of vitality through the movement without punishing myself.
Okay. And do you find, because once you talk about that whole anorexia, it's really about how you perceive your own body. So did you find that Nia changed that like how you now look at your body, or is that still there, but you found just a method of dealing with how your brain, how your brain processes that image? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, before, my focus was always and only on how I looked. And that's what I learned from society. That's what I learned from everything around me. So undoing that message, yeah, it's an ongoing process. But I have learned through Nia to concern myself more with how I feel. Do I feel good? And that's what matters. That's what I get out of bed in the morning, to feel good, not to look good.
I see that. No, and that's okay. So I love the response. Right, is that you don't focus on how you look, you focus on how you feel.
Yeah,
and that's what helps you cope.
Yes.
Okay, and then on top of that, what you're doing, and I certainly saw that in the videos I watched. What you're doing is you're sharing much of that energy. My apologies. Wow, I've never had that happen before. I've shared, you share some of that energy outward. So you're serving in a way that also brings back that feeling of goodness, because there's nothing like sharing, right? When you share, there's such joy in that. So you also then get fed back through your own sharing to others that might even have more dire symptoms, circumstances than yourself. So that is very, very commendable. And now your reach, do you reach all ages when you do this? Like, do you find the age gap is huge, or is it only more, what is you find the primary age gap, and do you get some young ones interested in it?
It's a really, really good question. I'll tell you that last week I taught a group of youth. I want to say they were like 13 to 19. And later on today, I'm teaching a group of university students. So it really does vary. I personally don't work with children, but Nia is taught to children as well.
Right.
But the sort of average person coming to my class is in the 30 to 60-ish age range. And I'll tell you, when the very first time I was introduced to Nia, I think I was 25, 26, and I could not appreciate it. I was just not in the right place. I don't think I had the life experience or the sophistication or the frankly, the understanding what it means to be a spiritual being. I don't think I had any of that.
Well, I think we kind of all grew up in that Jane Fonda era where fitness was high impact.
Yeah.
And that was your lens of fitness. And I can tell you, coming from high impact, I jogged, I did the step. When you talked about the step, I did the high impact aerobics. I sought out high impact aerobics, and I had little tolerance or appreciation for low impact aerobics. And in fact, where I ended up getting my appreciation for it was having a twin birth in which I had gained a lot of weight. And I then had to get back physically active with a lot of weight on me that I wasn't used to carrying. And everybody told me walk. And I was like, are you kidding me? I got to run. And I tried running, but of course it doesn't work anymore when you're carrying, at least for me, because you can't see my stature, but my stature is very small. I'm not a tall person. I'm a very short. I'm 5 feet. Mm-hmm. So I'm not tall. So carrying a certain amount of weight and running with that is only doing damage on your knees and everything else. Mm-hmm. So I was forced to walk. And it's only when I walked and I lost all my weight walking that I came to appreciate, oh my goodness, it gives you the same benefits. It still makes your stomach flat. It's still, that I came to appreciate low impact. So now I'm like a 360-degree turn in that I prefer the low impact exercise, Zumba, dance, anything like that, as opposed to this heavy. And young people think that way. They don't think their knees are ever going to hurt. They don't think they're ever going to get an injury. Come on now, let's be real. Yeah. Right?
No, you're right. And I thought the same. I was in the same camp when I was first introduced to Nia. And, I did a number on my knees through all the pounding on the pavement. Yeah. Right. So
join the club.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess a matter of life experience, age, I don't know, combination of those things that has me realizing now that this is the one body that I get and that I want to have a good relationship with it. And I want to take care of it so that, we can together live a happy and productive life.
Absolutely. And yeah. I post it? There's a post that's coming out from me about that exact thing where I'll put on Instagram that has an empty hospital bed. And I talk about health is to avoid filling the wards. Your whole approach to health is fulsome mind, body, spirit, but your goal is to avoid filling wards. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about, right? Is when you look at health, you have to look at preventing injuries, loving your body, and giving back that love to your body to keep it overall healthy. And mm-hmm. And I think if people kind of pivot their perspective just a tad on how they're looking at health, because a lot of the messaging that we get from the magazines, from all of this, is that you have to go to such massive extremes to be healthy. And one of the things I'm coming, certainly as I age, is to appreciate that it's all about movement. Mm-hmm. It's all about just staying, always moving, always stretching. And like I'm sure you do too, some elderly in my family, like my grandmother's 99 years old. So I have some elderly in my family who I see have a hard time supporting the bones, the stature that we have, because their muscles now are weaker than so you know what I mean? So yeah. You see that, and I've come to appreciate, at the end of the day, I've got to keep moving. I've got to stay active, because at the end of the day, as I age, I want my muscle physique to be able to support the skeleton piece of me, because that could be, with age, it becomes odd in that the skeleton weighs more than the muscle you have to actually uplift that skeleton.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these things become very, very important. And I, for any young people that are listening, we really want them to understand. Don't take it for granted.
Well, that's it. And I think I learned, I went to the extremes in that
Mm,
I grew up, I was clumsy. I was not into sports or anything like that. And I, knew nothing about my body. And then I flipped into an extreme where I'm like, no, I'm going to do all this exercise, hardcore, the harder, the better. And now I feel like I went from nothing to all, and now I'm going all into moderation. And
right.
that's really the key, has been so helpful for me, a moderation in not only in movement, but in my emotions. Like I don't have the extremes. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but just for me, it's more controlled and balanced.
Yeah.
My whole, sorry if you can hear my dog barking.
It's okay. It's okay. I have one too, so I get it.
Yeah, I have. I've changed in terms of, like, I used to be a real perfectionist. You know,
Oh my goodness. Join the club. Oh, it's a daily battle. It's a daily battle.
I shouldn't say I used to be. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
you never, at least I find I will, my standards are so high. But the interesting thing as a perfectionist, your standards start with yourself. That's what people don't understand. You start first with those high standards for yourself. Once you meet those high standards, you're expecting them of others.
yeah.
And that's where it becomes then a lie. It's, as I've said before, perfectionism is a lie because it doesn't really exist. But in our heads, it does. So I get it, Jen. To be a
Okay.
perfectionist, it's a daily. I'm not sure you ever get over it, but I'm certainly learning to manage, and I'm learning to accept imperfect, what I call imperfect tolerance. That's what I'm learning to live in.
Yeah, imperfect tolerance. I love that. I love that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. In that what I create for myself and I expect of others is just harmful to everyone. It's just harmful to, you
Yeah.
know. But it's an awareness, and I know now that I don't beat myself up as much when things go wrong. In that I can't possibly control everything. That's just unreasonable.
And
Um,
that's what I love about these guest appearances and conversations, because it really does showcase that at the end of the day, we are all humans. We are not alone. We always think we're alone. Like we always think, I'm a perfectionist. I'm the oddball out. No, you're not alone in all of these things. We live a life the best that we can possibly live. We make decisions because that's all life is about. And we try our best, but sometimes, you know what? We mess up. Sometimes we divert. Sometimes we make mistakes. And but the big thing is being able to come back and be loving to yourself, to forgive yourself, forgive sometimes those around you, and just continue to move forward in a positive way. That's really, in my mind, if people talk about peaks and valleys of life, it's really about accepting yourself 100%, even more than 100%, recognizing that you're human. We all are. And being able to sit in that state and say, I can forgive. I can love others. I can love myself and thing. And that's what I see with you. And I find that, I just thank you so much for the transparency, the sharing,
mhm.
because you're not alone, Jen. Were you surprised when you said imperfection, and I chuckled and I thought, what is she thought? She's talking like if she's alone. Holy shit. You're not alone. I am there with you. And guess what? Guess where I got that from? My
Uh,
mom.
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I
You're.
literally, my mom, like obsessive perfectionist that you can eat off her floors. If there's Yesterday I visited her, there was something on her floor and she couldn't move away from that spot that she figured out what it was. And if I didn't nudge her, she would have gone some kind of cleaner, something to try and move that smudge because it shouldn't be there. So I learned that, right? Like that's what I grew up with. And here I am, just like my mom, a perfectionist, in possibly in different areas, but it passes on. So I have to nip it in the bud to recognize that. And one of my daughters is the same way, and recognize that. Step back a bit. Be kind to yourself. Be kind.
That's right. You got it. Yeah,
So
you got it.
to you, Sadie, because I'm trying to tell you that. Yeah, but continue the sharing. But I don't want you to ever feel like you're alone.
Sweet.
And that we're all like that. We're like many of us are, and I certainly am. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say this idea, this notion of being perfect. I now live in a body that is not. If you put a picture of a fitness teacher in your mind, that's not my body.
Right.
And there was a time when that really would have bothered me, and now I think I get to be a pioneer. I get to be part of dispelling this idea that you have to look a certain way to be fit. I get to prove people wrong, and just be me and be vulnerable and welcome people who might not think, oh, I can't, I'm not ready. I don't look this way. I don't have the right clothes or what have you. I'm happy to be part of changing the narrative on all of that.
And I love that, Jennifer. And I one of the things I want to infuse into that is that, to me, is one of the biggest lies that are permeated out into the market and to our young and to people like you and me, that this perception, all right, or preconception that skinny means healthy. And I have actually, and just for the audience to know, I have actually been involved in which what would be considered obese people have been medically tested, all sorts of tests, versus what would be considered non-obese, petite people. And guess in many of the tests who came out healthier.
It's so true. It's so true.
And that was medical tests done in hospitals that they came out healthier than the supposed skinny ones. And then to see how the skinny ones received that information and processed it, because their expectation is, I'm skinnier, I should be healthier. But it wasn't the case on actual tests. So I think it's an important message for the audience to understand that. So I'm glad you mentioned that, but continue.
Yeah, no. And the other part of being sort of, I don't know, imperfect, and the thing about me is it's a practice. So I feel like every time I get on the mat, so to speak, I get to do something to improve my body, mind, emotion, spirit, and anything. So even this morning, I was teaching a class and we're playing with balance. And I don't know where my balance was today. I must have lost it somewhere. But and so I'm the teacher, and we're practicing balance, and I'm not balanced. And all I can do is laugh. What I mean, just to have fun with it, and just to say, okay, my body's telling me something here. Maybe today there's just not right alignment for whatever reason, and I don't need to get angry, upset, let my ego get in the way. I just be with it and accept it, and at that vulnerability, when I don't beat myself up for it, I think translates to people watching and engaging, the students who can say, okay, the world is not going to end just because I can't do this one thing. It's like just noticing. You don't have to attach value to it or judgment. Just notice.
And to be able to laugh at yourself, right? To be able to chuckle at yourself. And, humor is a massive part of living and staying healthy as well. And to bring that into your life, even in the times when you look there's times when I'm blonde, like the traditional thing of blonde or the stereotype, not that I want to permeate that, but at times I think, and the kids will look at me like, what? And I'm so these things, and you laugh, you chuckle at it, right? So to be able to do that is wonderful. So now tell the audience, what do you want them being on this show, and showcasing the Nia technique and what you do? What do you want what is the biggest message you want the audience to leave with and walk away from related to this topic?
Well, I just think that feeling good in movement, and not exercise, movement, feeling good in the way your body is moving, I think is so much more important than the shoulds that we put on ourselves. I should do this. I should do that. I should get my heart rate up here. I should do, a lot of that is just, it's baggage. It's someone else's story. And I think I really want people to know that you deserve to feel good. You don't have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
It's your birthright to feel good. Pain is a message from the body, but pleasure is always there for the seeking, and it's really your choice, always your choice. When you are in any kind of movement situation, exercise class, making choices is the most beautiful thing you can do for your own body. So listening, tuning in, the body's always speaking to us. So responding is just a way to have a very respectful relationship with yourself, with your body.
Oh, that is wonderful. And you hit on one of the words, pleasure. And it's a bit not that I'm deliberately making plug, because I wasn't going to bring it up, but you mentioned the word pleasure. We have a series, Connect to Thrive. And it's a early morning show that we do once a month. And that Connect to Thrive is all about a sex loving relationship. But the core of it, the real core message of that series, is about exploring the pleasure aspect of ourselves, because in society, it makes us, with all the religion and all these types of messaging, it makes us feel like we can't really truly connect with that side of ourselves. So mm-hmm. I'm just glad I mentioned that, only because I'm glad that you mentioned it as a core piece of the puzzle, right? Yeah. Like, take off all of the pressure points, relax. And of course, A Rays of Living is all about living your best life. It's living it to the fullest. It's about not wasting any moment, any hour, any second of your day, and truly creating the life that you need to live. And this is all part of that you're okay to move. You don't have to do the high impact, and just enjoy the movement. Like, truly enjoy the movement and connect with the pleasure part of that and how it makes you feel, not just even from only the movement, but how it makes you feel at the soul level, at the spirit level, at the mind level, right? So once you start talking about all those things, I think about mental health, I think about anxiety, I think about all these things that we build up in this society, and how something as beautiful, because that's all I can say when I watch Nia, it's beautiful. And how something as beautiful as the Nia technique can be embraced and can rid you of some of those pressure points. How beautiful. Like, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sold. You don't have to sell me.
I'm speaking to the
I mean, another, thing that I haven't mentioned, you mentioned mental health, and I happen to have bipolar disorder. Okay. And I really feel like this movement practice gives me, it's part of my wellness plan. Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't take medication, but I also just get sort of a leveling off feeling from being engaged. And again, if it's not Nia, it's something else that makes you feel good, that you enjoy, that speaks to your heart and soul, like you were saying, Jen, that gives you pleasure. Like, you deserve it.
Absolutely. And I like, we talk about, like, just for a moment, and it might be a digression. I don't think I'm digressing, but just in case, it's not the first time, so nobody who watches me will be surprised. But when we talk about COVID, right? Some people look at COVID as negatively. I've never looked at COVID that way. I've always found COVID to have been a blessing, actually. Even though it had some,
Yeah.
negative outcomes, I still feel it was a blessing. And let me explain what I mean by that before people think, oh, COVID got us to stop. COVID got us to just do a checkpoint on our lives and how we were living our lives. And I know, for one, I was in a car 3-4 hours a day. I was traveling, you know what I mean? I was going. And certainly, so I can speak from my lived experience that COVID got me to stop. And I know it's many people's lived experiences. And it gave us an opportunity to reflect on, how did we get here?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I actually didn't like that, but I was doing it anyway. These types of thoughts. So I see this conversation as no different. It's an opportunity to look at a way of exercising, another option. You can choose something else, but it's a way of looking at an exercise option that allows you to stay connected to that pause. Stay connected to what you need. Stay connected to how your body is telling you. So if you lift your arm and it hurts, why lift your arm? Find another way to do it. Find a different approach to take to lifting your arm. It's no different to that. And I think we have to embrace these opportunities. And I certainly take my brand serious enough to find interest in things to bring to the audience for consideration to enhance their lives, enhance their livelihood, enhance their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And this is just another one. And I've gone on the internet and I've seen other people doing, but I haven't seen them. I don't know. Is there like a movement? Is there association? Is there something related to the NIA technique? Is it global? What is that? Maybe you can give us a concept of that. But to close off where I was coming from, audience, keep the stop, keep the reflection, and put all the pieces in your life that you need to thrive and be happy and be at peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, we have one life to live. It should be lived fully. It should be lived with passion. It should be lived with purpose, and it should be exponential. And this is just another piece to look at and evaluate if it fits for you or not. I think it's a beautiful technique. And I think it merits consideration. So Jen, with that, just tell us, what does the society of or the coaching of NIA look like?
Yes. So definitely it's international, all over the world. I dance with people now, as you say, COVID's an opportunity, in South Africa, in Australia, in Israel. It's incredible. Yeah. So the international website where you can get information about classes is www.nianow.com. nianow.com.
Oh, that's a simple one. nianow.com. Excellent. So that is where you can go to get information. And as we're wrapping up, Jen, why don't you tell us, come on, this is you have open thing to sell yourself. Go ahead. Yes. I'm giving you that opportunity. So please take it.
Yeah. So I teach 6 days per week. I have hour-long classes. I have 15-minute NIA snack breaks, lunchtime snack breaks. I have seated classes, and you can get all that information on my website at Jen Hicks, just like my name is spelled on this here, jenhicks.ca.
Excellent. So you've heard about that. Please check out Jen. As I said, at her website, jenhicks.ca.
Mm-hmm.
As well as on LinkedIn. She is on LinkedIn. Just go and key in her name. You'll find her page. and go and look at it as well. And of course, on LinkedIn, you can message if you so desire. Are you on Facebook, Jen?
I am on Facebook, but more on Instagram and
Okay. And
yeah.
LinkedIn. Okay,
Yeah.
so her main platforms are Instagram and LinkedIn. So as I said, check her out, follow, subscribe. And in wrapping up, we'll wrap it up now. Thank you, Jen, for being here. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it so much. You touched on so many. Wow, I wasn't expecting all the points you touched on, but you really touched on some significant life points. I am Jen Drakes, spelled the same way. My apologies. And thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, depending on your preferred platform, please remember to like the show, subscribe, hit the subscribe button either on YouTube, Twitch, or on Facebook. Follow the show. And it is so important to leave ratings and reviews. It really does help us. Jen can attest to that. And please share the love. Pass on the postings, the shows, the videos, all of that. The podcast audio of this show will be posted shortly, so you can download that from Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Libsyn, Apple, or Google, and so much more. And by all means, mark your calendar for our next live show. And I love you all, and thank you so much. We would not be here without you, and truly, truly appreciate it. And once again, Jen, thank you so much for being here with us. I love these guest shows. And so with that, we are going to sign out, and we will visit you in a week or so for our next show. Peace out.
Thank you. Thank you.